The Russian army opens a new offensive toward the Dnipro, the most significant breakthrough of 2025. Good day, dear friends. We continue to monitor the frontline situation in Ukraine. Before we begin, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription supports the channel's growth. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. So let's open the map. Yesterday, a significant event occurred. Ukrainian armed forces have begun not only mentally preparing their soldiers for battles in the Dnipro region, but have also officially opened the Dnipro direction. Seriously. Look, they used to focus on the Kurakov direction, but this has now disappeared. It no longer exists in reports from the Ukrainian armed forces, for obvious reasons. Kurakov is now under the control of Russian forces, so there can be no Kurakov direction anymore. Interestingly, Ukrainian sources persistently claim otherwise, stating that fighting is still ongoing in Kurakov. But moving on, the Makiivka sector is also not yet under Russian control, though it is heading toward its conclusion. We'll discuss this later. Now the Ukrainian side has removed these directions and created a new one, the Novopavlivka direction, named after the village of Novopavlivka. This village, located in the Dnipropetrovsk region, is a relatively large settlement with a population of 3,600 people, similar in size to the town of Sudzha in the Kursk region. Why did the Ukrainian armed forces designate this direction? For two main reasons. First, as I mentioned, to mentally prepare both soldiers and society for upcoming battles on new territories. There have been no ground battles in the Dnipropetrovsk region so far, not even at the beginning of the conflict. Second, because the front line is inevitably moving toward the borders of the Dnipropetrovsk region on three fronts. Let's analyze this in detail. Russian advances toward Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russian army is approaching the Dnipropetrovsk region from three directions, and entry seems inevitable. 1. From Pokrovsky district, Novovasilivka. The village of Novovasilivka is now entirely under Russian control. Currently, troops are on the outskirts of the next settlement, Uspennivka. The distance to the Dnipropetrovsk border is still significant, about 12 kilometers, but the main issue here is not the distance, but the fortifications. The area is heavily fortified, with villages like Uspennivka, Novoalexandrivka, Novomykolaivka, Muravka, and Novoserhievka spread along the saline riverbanks. Quick progress by Russian forces in this area is unlikely. Second southern section, near Nadeyevka. The situation is different here. The distance to the border is shorter by 2 kilometers, which is minor, but the absence of strong defensive lines is crucial. Currently, Russian forces are positioned near Nadeyevka, a well-fortified settlement with mined approaches and fortifications inside. A storming of Nadeyevka is inevitable, and while the defenses are strong, similar fortifications have been breached before. After taking Nadeyevka, Russian forces would gain operational freedom. There are no fortifications for 5 kilometers until Kotlyarivka, a small, unfortified village. From Kotlyarivka, the border of the Dnipropetrovsk region is within reach. If a Russian advance into the Dnipropetrovsk region is to be expected, this is the most likely direction. 3. From Novodarivka. The third direction is from Novodarivka. Here, the distance to the Dnipropetrovsk border is minimal, only 7 kilometers, with the border lying beyond the village of Temirivka. However, this front remains static for now, with no significant changes, unlike the more dynamic areas we just discussed. The situation around Velika Novosilka. Significant developments have occurred around Velika Novosilka. Yesterday, Russian forces breached Ukrainian defenses in this area, taking control of the village of Neskuchny. The settlement spans slightly over 1 square kilometer, with a pre-war population of around 700 people. While the numbers may seem small, the implications are significant. The next stage is the battle for Vremivka, which will mark the final blow to the Ukrainian garrison in Velika Novosilka. The garrison is already effectively encircled. All supply routes are cut off, including the Komar Road and the path from Huliaipol. Even dirt roads are no longer viable for rotation or resupply as they are under constant fire. The Ukrainian garrison's position is becoming untenable, and its defeat is a matter of time, likely by the end of January. Kurakov direction, as of January 12th. Assault on Andrika, Yantana. In this sector, there are increasingly clear signs that the semi-encircled Ukrainian grouping near Dakhny is beginning to collapse. Russian forces demonstrate firepower superiority and make steady gains. Russian units hold absolute firepower superiority in this area and are gradually capitalizing on it. Yesterday, Russian armed forces captured the settlement of Yantan, exposing the southern flank of the Ukrainian semi-encirclement. Additionally, by evening, assault troops from the 114th Brigade achieved another remarkable feat, capturing a fortified Ukrainian company stronghold on the eastern outskirts of Andrika, thereby initiating battles for the village. It is likely that a full-scale assault on Andrika will begin today. Ukrainian reserves here are evidently depleted, and the Ukrainian command has no means to plug the growing gaps in their defenses. This is further exacerbated by developments north of Slavyanka, where the Ukrainian front, after several days of staunch resistance, has effectively collapsed under pressure. Pokrovsk direction, as of January 12th. Breakthrough toward Udakhne, entry into Zverevo. A prolonged, essentially counterattack-driven battle in this sector has ended in favor of the Russian army. Ukrainian reserves were exhausted more quickly, and yesterday Russian forces fully captured a quarry, advancing to the outskirts of Udakhne. The distance between Russian forces and Udakhne is now approximately 1 kilometer. Additionally, Russian units made significant progress between the settlements of Kotlin and Zverevo, securing the western outskirts of the latter. Ukrainian command must now prepare for imminent battles for Udakhne and Kotlin, two key settlements in the Pokrovsk sector. Losing them would significantly worsen the Ukrainian army's situation. Mirnohrad direction, as of January 12th. Renewed intensity in battles. Based on yesterday's developments, Russian reserves have begun arriving in the combat zone east of the Pokrovsky agglomeration. Russian forces have resumed exerting increased pressure on Ukrainian positions, and more favorable news for the Russian side can be expected soon. As before, fighting continues for the settlement of Baranivka and a key road junction on the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka highway. In addition, fighting has now extended to Vodyan-Druha, Toretsk direction, as of January 12th. Strategic importance diminishes for Ukraine. In the Ukrainian information space, a narrative has emerged to prepare for the loss of Toretsk. Statements like, "The city has fulfilled its strategic role and now lies in ruins," and "there is no point in holding it anymore," clearly indicate Kiev's acknowledgement that maintaining control over Toretsk is no longer viable. The Russian army's practice of raising flags and broadcasting such victories means Ukraine will have no opportunity to mislead its population for weeks on end. Hence, this preemptive messaging. As of this morning, the Ukrainian armed forces retain control of only the Toretsk mine, whose days are clearly numbered. It is likely to face either an assault or encirclement, forcing the garrison to retreat. However, as noted in previous reports, this is only part of Ukraine's troubles. Given the situation in other sectors, the most pressing threat comes from Russian assaults in the Sherbinivka and Petrovka areas, which continue without pause. Recognizing the critical importance of these positions and acknowledging that Toretsk is no longer defensible, the Ukrainian army is relocating its few remaining reserves to this area. However, this merely delays Russian advances rather than halting them altogether. Chasiv Yar direction, as of January 12th. Situation overview. Active offensives by Russian armed forces continue in Chasiv Yar. Russian units have slightly expanded their control over the northwestern part of the city along the railway. Meanwhile, battles are ongoing in the southern part of the city, with the aim of extending control. Although Ukrainian resistance is weakening, it appears that the garrison has been ordered to hold its ground at all costs. This is understandable. Following the loss of Kurakov and the very near loss of Toretsk, as well as the ongoing collapse of Velika Novosilka, surrendering Chasiv Yar would be politically catastrophic for Ukraine. That's all for today's Frontline Updates. I wish you all a pleasant and peaceful weekend.